My guest is Brother Kees Elands from Grand East of Netherlands, who delivered an outstanding paper during the latest edition of the World Conference of the Regular Grand Lodges, held in Israel in May 2023. The topic of his presentation was Staying Relevant for Future Generations. In my opinion, Freemasonry is declining in its importance and role in the society as well as an educational structure. Many thanks, Brother Keys, for your time and for sharing your thoughts on your researches with our audience. Thank you, Keys.
Yeah, thank you, Claudio.
The English-speaking Grand Lodges are losing membership. It is the same situation in the Netherlands. What kind of politics do you have for retaining membership?
And that's a good question. Well, first of all, I'm not a representative of the Grand Lodge, so I'm not, let's say, the specialist to answer this. But of course, what I can say about it is that it's actually challenging in general to remain memberships. So not only within Freemasonry, it's challenging in a lot of areas currently, but of course also within Freemasonry. So it's a struggle. It is declining, um, but it also depends a bit on which lodge. So my lodge, for example, is a very healthy lodge. We gain a lot of new members, while you have other lodges that are, yeah, that struggle to survive. Um, Speaking again, I'm not a representative of the Grand Lodge, but what I do know is that it's a topic that's discussed, first of all, openly between lodges, but also initiated from the Grand Lodge out. It's even research. So several times, some brethren have developed research papers about it, which is then supported by the Grand Lodge, sent out to all the lodges. So it's an openly discussed topic. So everyone, yeah, could be involved if they want to. And I think that the Grand Lodge by that is doing its best to support, let's say, individual lodges the best they can with advice and ideas. Um, if you look at our current Grand Master, he had a pretty strong campaign actually focusing on three main topics. So one was more about the connection. So make sure that we have a good connection between the Grand Lodge and individual lodges, but also between lodges and between brethren. But also the topic of the deepening of the rituals, the deepening of the symbolism, and the meaning of those aspects. And the third topic was the internalization of that knowledge. And I think those three topics are actually topics that help to let's say stop this losing of membership. So yeah, that's what I can say regarding the politics from from the Grand Lodge from my perspective. So, but it is declining. Yeah, and currently I think it's actually growing again. So, but if you take it in a time schedule of longer time, then it's declining. Yeah.
How is possible to connect the essence of Freemasonry with the changing needs of the people in our global society? Quoting you, how can Freemasonry be relevant for the future generations?
Wow. In many ways, there's first of all, I think what's important to say is that Freemasonry and the essence of Freemasonry is relevant. So it's not a question of how to be relevant. Actually, it is relevant. Actually, that's what my what yeah what I've analyzed in my research actually to see that the essence of Freemasonry, like brotherhood or respect or better society, tolerance, etc., self-development, is perhaps more relevant than ever if you look at our current society. So if you look at the essence of Freemasonry, um, it's super relevant. However, the form, the form of how we bring this essence to life or is brought to life internally or externally, I think, yeah, that could be more made more attractive or more effective, so that our relevance is better expressed to different groups of people. So, speaking about the form or the tone of voice we use of the image, because well, we're not in 1700 anymore, so the context is changing as well. So you have to be relevant in today's context as well. And I think that was maybe my main conclusion of the research I did. So I analyzed actually the essence of Freemasonry related to the needs of people, from a, let's say, social cultural perspective. And then I found out actually that there were many points of relevance for fitting in today's society. But I think one of the main, conclusions actually was, okay, um, we have a long history, but that history in itself is not the most important thing. We have to bring that past to the context of today. So we have to explain what's within the rituals or what's in the methodology or whatever you would like to call it, or the moral system, what's in there, what makes it so relevant in today's society. So, for example, looking at future generations, to be specific, millennial generation, for example, for them, they're very me-centric oriented, so they're very much about what's in it for me. So the aspect of self development is very important. So we could emphasize more on that, for example, by saying, hey, this is actually a place where you can work on your self development, for example, because now they go to, let's say, uh, other places to find that, and they perhaps don't even know that Freemasonry is relevant for that topic as well. Also, we see that with more younger generations, so I speak about Generation Z, that the essence of Freemasonry is also very relevant. But for them, let's say an inclusive demography is much more important. So more representation of, let's say, how future society would look like, instead of, for example, I'm generalizing now, some older white man speaking from a European or let's say a Dutch context then. So you see that those are topics that are quite important for them, and we could perhaps bring those essences more, um, more clear, to new target groups. And the same as younger generations are really interested in they're really networked, so they're much more interested into, for example, an international network. Right? They travel all the time, they go everywhere. So to know that you have brethren in other countries which you can visit easily, I don't know, with a Masonic passport, for example, those are really things that are attractive for younger generations. But the main thing is the essence is 100% irrelevant, but the form, how we bring that, to the outside, or is the Google Freemasonry. If you Google Freemasonry, I mean, that's the reality. If you Google Freemasonry, then you see um, older men in strange suits. For you and me, of course not. We know where it's about, but that's how it's seen. You see a lot of conspiracy, blah blah around it. That's what people see. While it's not about the deepening and the deep value that we can offer in one's life. So I think we should bring the essence more uh, to the surface and explain why it's relevant in today's context.
Kees, do you think that nowadays world needs Freemasonry like in the past? Freemasonry is somehow eroded. Does Freemasonry become more of a charity organization?
What do you mean with the past? What past?
Past means past tense.
Okay.
compared with the, for example, previous century.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm no historian, but of course, as I said before, the context changes over time.
Correct.
So we're now not in the time of enlightenment.
Yeah.
No, but that's the context. That's how you have to look at it, I think. On some aspects, it's perhaps the same, but I mean, the time of enlightenment was the time of reasoning, for example, and in today's society, reason relies on facts, and now we live in a time where reason is actually discussed. So we have fake news. We live in extreme complex times. There's a declining trust in, let's say, the traditional institutions, much more than in the past. So this whole context is actually changing, and that's also why I said that I think the essence of Freemasonry is still relevant, but in a way it has to, not the essence. The essence doesn't, for me personally, I don't think the essence has to change, but perhaps it could be have a better fit to this, to today's context, so to speak.
Today's, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, because I think you should not change the essence actually. um, so in that sense, maybe the way it's applied now is eroded, maybe more like that. And about charity, that's not a, I'm speaking from a Dutch perspective. Charity is not a Dutch, the Dutch thing, so to speak. So I don't know much about other countries, but I saw a documentary about the UK, for example, on Netflix, Freemasonry, and there was much more about charity, for example. That's not the case in the Netherlands.
I think it's better approach.
I also personally have I have my own opinion about it. So we have voices that said, "Oh, we need to increase this," but also voices like my own. I personally believe it's much more of an individual choice to act as a Mason in the West,
Absolutely.
which for me indirectly means that I try to live as a good person, and that includes charity for me. But that's my own choice.
Absolutely.
That's the way how I feel that in. So in the Netherlands, it's not per se a charity organization. Yeah.
Yes, this is why I applied for membership in a lodge in Rotterdam
Oh, is
because
that?
it's, yes, it's quite different compared with the British Freemasonry or in other countries, European countries. From my international Masonic experience, I have noticed differences between Eastern and Western European Freemasonry, between South and North America. What kind of Freemasonry do you think is closer to what Freemasonry should be?
That's a good question. Well, I'm not an expert in Freemasonry. I'm an expert in understanding human behavior and advise multinationals on how to apply this. So most probably you have much more international experience. So maybe you can explain maybe what the tastes are. I mean, what do you then see as a difference between European and uh, North America and South America?
In
So I
North
can answer the
America,
question. Yeah.
it's charity, and in South America, it's a, I can say, a social movement. In Cuba, for example, they have thousands of brethren. They are very social, involved. In Italy, they are involved also in the life of the society. They have a strong voice regarding the political movements, regarding the political decisions. In Europe, it's more philosophical. In UK, it's formal, in my opinion, and charity oriented. In Netherlands, is not so charity oriented, but it's very interesting. Anyway,
Yeah.
I assume that the lodge in Rotterdam, it's very interesting because it's really a very international lodge. I met their brethren from all the world. It's very interesting with their background, social background, with their cultural background. It's very interesting, and the atmosphere in the lodge, it's very fraternal, I can say.
Hmm.
I don't find this in another lodge, grand lodges, I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I can't judge about it because I don't know how. Of course, I met recently in Jerusalem. I met, I don't know, 40 or 50 different grandmasters from all over the world. So of
Wow.
course I know a little bit, and I know a little bit of the differences as you stated as well. But I'm not giving an opinion about what it should be, because I think that's not up to me to answer that question. Um, because if it works for the brethren there, then it works for the brethren there, and
Correct.
cultural aspects
100%.
are also very important in this. And I'm from a different culture. I can only answer this from as a brethren, as a brother, on how I perceive it myself, and
Mm-hmm.
what works for me. For me, it has nothing to do with business. It has nothing to do with charity. For me, it has to do with the method on getting to know myself with the help of my brethren and the help of symbols and rituals. And for me, that's where the focus is about, on how can I or can we apply what we learned? How can we apply
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
our life what we learn from our moral system and what we learn from our rituals? And that, as I explained, for me personally, it means that, of course, it means you try to act as a, yeah, with this moral system in my private life or business life as well. Um, for me, that's where it's about. And the other things like business, etc., that has nothing to do with Freemasonry in my perspective, in my the way how
Mm-hmm.
I perceive it. And doing that, working with these rituals and applying the knowledge of this moral system is super hard work already. That's so hard work. You have to stay curious all the time. You have to stay sincere all the time, and that's hard work. I mean, to act
Indeed.
as a Mason is, for me personally, it's like, yeah, we're all human beings as well, and to keep on doing this and listening to others, not to answer something, but really listen to someone. Those
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
aspects that's already enough. I don't have time for charity and business. Yeah, so that's at least my personal view on it. Like, work with the symbolism, work with the rituals, and apply it as good as you can do.
What is the most difficult problem facing Freemasonry today?
There, well, unfortunately, we live in times of high complexity, which means that there
Yes.
are no single problems anymore. So most problems are actually intertwined with other problems, or um, but to generalize it a bit, I think from an external perspective, you have fake news, you have conspiracy theories, you have a lot of people have the feeling of polarization, and that they feel that actually there's a lot of polarization going on, which is of course amplified by algorithms, and actually, yeah, those I think are problems that are against Freemasonry, so to speak. You see also a lot of conspiracy theories about Freemasonry, which are complete nonsense. So that's actually happening on an external perspective. I think also individualized society has raised new generations of um, human beings that really focus on, I call it IWW, IWW, IWI, meaning I want what I want when I want it. So people want things fast. They want it now. They want it when they want it. And if you go become a Mason, if you go to Freemasonry, you need to have an open mind. You need time to
Mm-hmm.
grow. You need time to reflect. It's the opposite of fast, fast, fast. It's actually something that has to grow. That you need time for that. So that those are external factors that some of the external factors that I think could create a problem for Freemasonry. Internally, I think perhaps our egos uh, could, yeah, could create a problem for Freemasonry. Yeah? Maybe we take on Masonic responsibilities or roles based on a perceived status, for example, instead of I want to become, I don't know, a grandmaster or whatever to serve the people or
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that others intellectually also grow further. So I think there's always a danger in there. Also because we have, at least speaking in, I think it's a European thing as well, at least in the Netherlands, we have an older demographic. And what we know from research with older generations, the older you come, the less flexible you come. It's easier to lose curiosity, for example. So I think, yeah, that could be sometimes a threat as well. That we forget that we always are an entered apprentice, and that we always should stay an entered apprentice as well. Yeah. So some of the yeah problems we face, I think.
Splendid, thank you. The public perception of Freemasonry has changed over time. What has led to these variations? A good public perception results in an increase in number of members.
Yeah, again, I think this whole, yeah, fake news,
Mhm.
conspiracy theories, polarization, this is of course amplified due through technology, and I think that's actually why the public perception also has changed over time. I think we're currently also having a trust issue. It's much more on a global scale as well. So there's a decline in trust, I think, around since 2008. Then in 2017, there was even more decline, according to Edelman. Um, so there's a trust issue as well. Um, and perhaps for a lot of people, it's unclear what we stand for in an understandable manner. Again, if you Google, yeah, Google it, Google Freemasonry, and then you see all these people in these strange clothing. Um, you see conspiracy theories, etc. It's really hard then for people to understand, but what is it about? It looks like a secretive club or whatever. So I think, yeah, that's perception. That's
Yeah.
that's how perception forms. So yeah, you yeah, you need open-minded people, and with whom you can have a decent conversation and explain, hey, it's actually not what you think. It's about actually the opposite of what you think. So yeah, I think technology has a big part in this as well when it comes to fake news, etc. Yeah.
How do you see the future of Freemasonry?
For me personally, very positive, because actually the analysis that we've done was actually showing that the essence is extremely relevant, even more relevant in today's society than before, because we face, as human beings, we face a lot of different challenges,
Challenges.
very complex challenges we have, and actually Freemasonry enables people, gives a sort of guidance as well.
A moral compass, or something.
Yeah, it gives, helps to find a moral compass, for example.
Mhm.
And also it's a method, it's a system already that has proven over hundreds of years that it works, so to speak. So therefore it fits perfectly in today's zeitgeist, so to speak. But again, um, um, the form in which is visible. I personally think we will have a decrease in numbers globally, um, um, because we're perhaps not able to yeah, to show our relevance in today's society. So most probably we'll see a decrease. and maybe really strange that I say that, but I don't believe that's necessarily a problem, because sometimes I think you need to get smaller, adapt to the changing circumstances, and then rise again, like a phoenix, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I rather have 20 brethren with I work with whom I share a variety of opinions and respect for our system, than having 50 brothers who are actually coming only for a nice glass of wine and chit chat about business and soccer. So I personally am very positive about the future of Freemasonry, but that does not mean that we will see growth everywhere in the coming years.
What lessons should be learned from the pandemic period? How did Freemasonry in the Netherlands overcome the pandemic?
Maybe it's good to explain one important difference with the Netherlands and other countries. I think the Netherlands is, I know it's one of the only, maybe the only, but maybe one or two countries more. We also do what we call uh, uh, compareren in Dutch. I think it's from Latin
Yeah.
compare. We also have, next to our rituals, so to speak, we also have evenings where we sit together and discuss topics together in a really structured manner. And that's something we also have specifically in the Netherlands. So we discuss topics together with brethren and show different perspectives on one topic, and learn from each other to see, hey, this is your perspective, interesting. I can take that home. This is your perspective. So we can disagree. That's not. We don't have to convince someone else, but we share perspectives so that we get richer actually, and
Absolutely.
think about it. Like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. So I haven't thought about that, and that's a very important thing we do in the Netherlands. So when the pandemic came, we had the problems like everyone. We couldn't be together. Of course, we went digital as much as possible, but to do a ritual digitally was yeah, not possible for most lodges to do, or was impossible to do. But we still had this system in the Netherlands where we could come together digitally and at least have some room to discuss these topics, for example. So I think therefore it made it a little bit easier in the Netherlands compared to maybe some other countries who were only performing the rituals. So I think it's important to explain that. So most went digital, but of course it was a tough time, because yeah, it's a social system, so it's somewhere, yeah, you need to be together and you want to be together, and there's a complete difference between having, like you and me now, a digital conversation versus a physical conversation. So it was hard. We lost members, but actually we gained new members again. So actually we're doing quite well currently. And I think it was especially for the entered apprentices. Yeah, it was tough. They missed guidance. They just started, and then all of a sudden she had this pandemic. So, um, but it learned many things. I think we learned that we'd like to be together, physically as well. But we also learned that we are flexible as well. We are able to, yeah, to set up digital meetings, etc. So that was also very interesting to see. Yeah, and it worked in one lodge. It worked better than the other, of course.
Finally, Kees, please let us know your curriculum vitae, both Masonic and profane. Please.
My CV.
Yes, your CV.
Well, I'm I think 7 years Freemason, and in my lodge I've been the Tyler, and I think you call it organist.
What?
uh,
You
uh,
organist?
yeah, but of course with digital music, but I think we call that organist or director
Yeah.
of music. And currently I'm a junior warden in my lodge. And what I in my business life, so to speak, as work, I'm heading a consultancy. It's called Transactive, and I'm a consultant for mainly multinationals all over the world. And I guide my customers in staying more relevant and meaningful towards the future. So I'm specialized, or we are specialized actually, in changing behavior of human beings, so to speak. And companies come to us when they are developing new strategies or new innovations or new products and services, etc. And we advise on how to align with the needs of people in order to be to develop more relevant product, services, strategies, etc. So that's my job.
Wow. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Kees.
Thank you as well, Claudio.